Welcome back to Monitors Unboxed. Today it's time for a mid-year update on my top 3 favourite monitors that I've tested in 2024 so far. It's another year that has been dominated by OLED gaming displays, though mostly through new panel formats rather than upgrades to the OLED technology itself. Still, the onslaught of new releases has kept me pretty busy, and there's been plenty of high quality products to enjoy. Like the video I made last year, this video is a little different to the typical recommendation videos that we make on the channel. When we make a best of video, we consider a wide audience and look at what many prospective buyers with different use cases might like in a display. This video, however, is a personal preference video. I'm thinking about the products that I like the most, the things I found the most interesting, and base everything around my preferences. The things I like, especially as a product reviewer, may not be the things that you like, but anyway, let's get into it. It was pretty difficult to decide on the exact monitor that's my favorite so far, but I do have a favorite panel type, and that's 32-inch 4K 240Hz QD-OLED. I've tested 4 of these displays in the first half of the year, and every time I'm impressed by their quality and performance. In fact, it's pretty remarkable how well all of the Asus, MSI, Dell, and Gigabyte models have fared. It's impossible to get a bad monitor from that bunch. That's mostly the reason why I find it difficult to pick a specific monitor as my favorite, though there are certainly some features and characteristics that I prefer. For example, I'm not a fan of the curved Alienware model simply due to its curve, so that model wouldn't be my favorite. Nothing wrong with its performance, and in many countries it's well priced, but personally if I was spending over $1,000 US on a display like this, I'd want it to be flat, so the Asus, MSI, and Gigabyte monitors are more my speed. There aren't many specific features from each of these variants that catch my attention as a buyer. The Asus PG32 UCDM does include ELMB black frame insertion, but as it's locked to fixed 120Hz gaming, I'd never use it. The Gigabyte FO32 U2P packs DisplayPort 2.1 UHBR20 connectivity, but I don't think this provides many real-world benefits to gamers over DisplayPort 1.4 with DSC. The MSI 321URX might be the cheapest model in the United States, but here in Australia it's the same price as the Gigabyte model and substantially more than the Alienware. From what I have tested so far, the things I really do like are the unlocked sRGB mode on the PG32 UCDM and the customizable OLED care features on the 321URX. Not exactly earth-shattering differences, but when the monitors otherwise deliver the same sort of experience, these are the features around the edge that can change my preference. Given all of these OLEDs generally have excellent factory calibration, I've enjoyed using the 321URX as my productivity monitor, and it is quite a bit cheaper than the Asus model. I think if I was forced to pick a favorite from this bunch, I'd give a very slight edge to the MSI variant. What's really impressed me though is the panel in general. The higher pixel density and adjusted subpixel structure have greatly improved text rendering to the point where it's not a major downside compared to similar LCD panels. These monitors probably won't go the distance for heavy productivity use based on the early results of my burn-in test, but between the text rendering and acceptable levels of SDR brightness, I found 4K QD-OLED to work really well in my workstation setup, better than I expected before I saw them in person. The speed on offer is excellent for gaming and also leads to a great productivity experience thanks to smooth, clear scrolling. Lightning fast response times result in better motion clarity than an LCD at the same refresh rate, and the high 240Hz refresh is not something I've been able to max out often in the single player titles I usually play. These QD-OLEDs look unbelievably good displaying today's HDR games thanks to their great HDR capabilities, per pixel control, and high resolution. Of course, there are still areas that Samsung Display need to work on before this is a perfect endgame sort of monitor. The screen's tendency to reflect ambient light needs work, and getting high brightness in high APL scenes is difficult under current configurations, but in general, I'd say these panels are a big step forward for the OLED gaming ecosystem. As an honourable mention here, I'll also throw in the LG 32GS95UE. This is a 32-inch 4K 240Hz WOLED monitor, and while WOLED hasn't been quite as impressive in this category as QD-OLED in my opinion, I really did like testing out dual mode functionality. Basically what this mode does is change the 4K 240Hz panel into 1080p 480Hz, providing much higher levels of motion clarity for multiplayer games at the expense of resolution. When I first heard about this technology, I was skeptical as to how well it would work and what the downsides would be, but after actually using it, I was very impressed with how seamless the experience is. Switching into 1080p 480Hz preserves everything great about this display, including its low input lag and HDR functionality. It's a fast changeover and it really works well, providing a genuine point of difference compared to QD-OLED. As I'm not a heavy competitive gamer, I'm personally less interested in this feature compared to the advantages of QD-OLED, but as a product tester, it was a very interesting feature to analyze. My second favorite monitor of 2024 is the AOC Q27G3XMN, which I believe was actually launched in 2023, but I tested it this year, so that counts, right? The reason why I love this display is it shows that genuinely great HDR doesn't need to be restricted to expensive products. The Q27G3XMN is just $280 US and absolutely trounces most other LCDs in this price range in terms of HDR performance, many of which don't offer genuine hardware capable of displaying HDR imagery. What AOC did right with this monitor is pairing a mainstream class VA LCD with an entry-level 336 zone backlight and offering that at an entry-level price. Nothing fancy, no ridiculously inflated MSRP, just a nice combination of hardware for those that want to experience HDR gaming without spending huge amounts of money. This really should have been possible years before now, but for some reason manufacturers wanted to squeeze every last dollar out of crappy edge-lit panels. The HDR experience with the Q27G3XMN isn't as good as you get from a higher-end LCD or an OLED, which is perfectly fine in this price tier. But with real-world brightness exceeding 1300 nits and decent dimming providing a good contrast ratio, this monitor gets your foot in the door and delivers a notable improvement over SDR-only displays. I think it's great for games like Cyberpunk 2077 and Alan Wake 2. My hope is that this type of monitor sets a new standard for the $300 price point and manufacturers will continue to evolve around it. For example, the Q27G3XMN's main weakness is response times, which on a VA LCD, they aren't amazing. If that could be tuned better in a new version or improved to the level of an IPS LCD, this class of display would be taken to the next level again. And I honestly think that's possible, given I've also seen decent zone count IPS LCDs come down in price. The disappointing aspect of this AOC monitor is mostly its availability. I'm really puzzled as to why this product isn't available absolutely everywhere because I think it would sell well in most regions. It's basically impossible to get in Australia without importing one, with AOC mostly focusing on the US market. That just doesn't make any sense. AOC should be pumping these out and flooding the market worldwide. And rounding out my top 3 monitors for the first half of 2024 is something I've recently tested, the Asus ROG Strix XG27AQ-DMG. What I really like about this product is it shows Asus have been listening to user feedback and providing what the buyers want. They saw that people liked the 27-inch 1440p 240Hz W OLED panel used in the PG27AQ-DM, but weren't a huge fan of the matte screen coating and higher price point. So they solved both of those issues in the one go with a special exclusive version. The main point of difference to the XG27AQ-DMG is its glossy screen coating, which genuinely looks great. It produces deeper blacks than QD-OLED when viewed in brighter environments and offers the clarity without coating grain that glossy enthusiasts love. Its mirror reflection handling isn't quite as advanced as Samsung's QD-OLED coating or even what LG uses for their OLED TVs, but the balanced approach to glossy ends up working very well and provides something different to other OLED gaming monitors. With OLED pricing continuing to drop over the last 12 months, I also really liked how Asus didn't attempt to raise prices back up to where they were with their new exclusive glossy W OLED. Debuting in the $700 to $750 range is exactly where this sort of product should be, slotting perfectly into the existing price structure established by older monitors like the AOC AG276QZD and LG 27GR95QE. I was also impressed with the performance characteristics, particularly HDR brightness. While it isn't always as bright as the PG27AQ-DM, the newer XG27AQ-DMG is typically much brighter than older, cheaper W OLEDs that it directly competes with at the same price. It even exceeds the latest 360Hz QD OLEDs, especially for high APL scenes, which are a weakness for Samsung's technology. This makes the XG27 AQDMG an excellent choice for all but enthusiast competitive gamers that crave the highest refresh rates and lowest input lag. While this display is still at 240Hz compared to 360Hz with QD-OLED alternatives, 240Hz is plenty fast enough for many types of gaming, especially single-player titles. Of course, there are still some downsides to this type of WOLED monitor, especially for text rendering, as it's still using an RWBG subpixel layout and a relatively low pixel density. Asus attempted to compensate for this with their clear pixel edge feature that doesn't work overly well. Similarly, I wasn't that impressed with their solution to OLED flicker, which was to simply raise the minimum refresh rate to cripple variable refresh functionality. What I hope we continue to see is prices trending downwards for these types of OLED monitors. This is undoubtedly a great choice if you want to jump into 1440p HDR gaming. However, $700 is still pretty expensive for most gamers, especially those that usually stick to mid-range hardware or lower. But with releases like this, I can see a future where OLEDs start at $500, and honestly, I don't think that's too far away. That will continue to put pressure on LCDs and encourage manufacturers to produce more HDR-capable LCDs like the Q27G3XMN2, which is only a good thing for everyone. So those are my top 3 favorite monitors from the year so far. It's been a jam-packed first half with a crazy amount of releases, far more than we usually see in the early parts of the year, brought about by quite a few new OLED panel releases. We're still expecting more to come in the second half of the year, including more dual mode WOLED releases and new formats such as 1440p 480Hz OLED, so stay tuned for all of that. Anyway, if you do want to support Monitors Unboxed and the testing we do here, then please do consider supporting the channel via our Patreon or Floatplane accounts. Links are in the description below. If you sign up, you'll gain access to some cool benefits like our Discord community, our monthly live streams, BTS videos, and all sorts of good stuff. So thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.